Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Haunted Hearsay. I'm Caroline, and I'm up in Donegal as usual, and I'm joined by Ben down in Dublin. Hi, Ben. How are you?
Hi, Caroline, I'm good. Yeah, not a bother. Not really.
Any scandal in Dublin this last week?
No, we've had nice sunshine. I took a quick visit to a friend's house out of county, which was
Oh, very nice. Where did you go?
went to Waterford. So we didn't leave the house. We are still very kind of in a bubble, let's say. But it was really nice. Yeah, it was the first time in a year and a half.
Yeah, I've not really left the house apart from my garden. I actually walked to the top of the hill outside my house today and walked across the road and visited a neighbour. And I just did it because I had to get out of the house. We've had lovely weather on and off, but it's like one really lovely day, and then the next thing
Like,
it's like you lose your brain. It's not cold though, but
yeah.
yeah, I've spent most of my time gardening and trying to get things like that done. So there's nothing else for it. Like,
I'm still
uh,
recovering from my weekend, but
oh,
I'm
good for you. Good for you. I've had
had
a
a few
perfectly
drinks.
sensible one anyway. Well, back to haunted hearsay.
Yeah,
I thought very quickly we would just recap on Michael's stories last week.
yeah, they're very interesting.
Very interesting. Now, I mean, I spoke to him about the day before and then afterwards, and then, watching it, I felt he kind of jumped right into it. So, just to explain a little bit, Michael was a young fellow that was on last week, and he had never believed, even though he'd had two experiences when he was younger, he had put that down to coincidence that he didn't actually understand what it was. He never really believed in the paranormal until he met this girl, and she claimed that there was poltergeist activity in her home, and he didn't really believe it. And so he went to the home with her, and he thought, I'll catch her out now. And the mother was there, and he says, I suppose what's the poltergeist act? She says, don't say anything, that only antagonizes it. And he got a bit of a shock. And then apparently the younger brother started running around the house trying to annoy the spirit. And lo and behold, the next thing, the dog's lifted 2 feet into the air and flies across the room. So this is the
Mhm.
first time he really, and it was through all of his experiences at this place that he realized the experiences he had when he was young had to be precognitive.
Mhm.
It was some sort of like, a psychic awareness that he had. So it was just really to clarify that, because that is an area in Letterkenny, I don't know if has mentioned where, that's the third different haunting from the same area that we have heard.
Mhm.
Now, the only thing is, looking into the history, I thought I'm going to start delving more into the history of that area, Donegal. I'm quite familiar with along the coast here. But I've said it before, there's never been a concise history of Ireland written. There are lots of different books by lots of different people, but I've been saying it since I went to school. There's no concise history of, bum, 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 back in the Stone Age. This is who lived in Ireland. This is what happened, bringing us up to today. We learned more about English history and about world history than we did Irish history at school. So I've always said there isn't a concise history. But I've started looking into the history now of that part of Donegal, especially along the Foyle River that runs from Derry, basically right into Letterkenny.
Yeah.
And big boats would have come up that river, gone back right into the 1000s, 1100s. The Vikings would have come
Mer-
up that
merchants,
river. Pardon?
merchant ships.
Yes, exactly. You didn't get into Donegal through the mountains that time. You came in through it by the sea.
Mm.
And it was always, I mean, it was always a big thing especially for the Brits, because it was having control of that part of that those sort of seas, and they were trade routes coming in and around, coming from Africa. You
Maybe
know,
we should explain a little bit that there's Donegal is sort of geographically cut off from the rest of the Republic of Ireland by mountains. So
yes, that's right. And it's
although
only
it
really
is the Republic of Ireland, you have your six counties and Donegal at the side, and then you have your mountain range, and under that is the rest of the
yeah.
Republic of Ireland. So it's sort of out of the way. So when you say that they had to access it that way, that makes total sense.
When the English were given back um, the counties to relinquishing control of all 32 counties. Remember, they relinquished control of 26 counties. Um, they were well, before that settlement, they were offered all of Ulster, all nine
Including
counties.
Donegal.
But they only took 6 counties because the other 3 counties were a nightmare to get to. Plus the fact that people were just clean mad.
Yeah.
So it wasn't worth their trouble. Back to the foil and the hauntings along the foil.
Mm.
As I say, there were a lot of big battles, and I've discovered there was a lot of really big battles in and around Letterkenny, taking you right out along different parts of the foil. And we come along. Now, we always speak about, like, we know that there's lots of areas in Letterkenny that have real hotspots for paranormal activity. But between there and Derry, and I have a story about Derry as well at the moment, but on the way, you have Manor Cunningham. And Manor Cunningham, there's several places there, but one in particular is the Sharon Rectory. And the Sharon Rectory was built in 1795, and it was built by the Church of Ireland, and it was for the rector, who would be serving there. And in the first couple of years of the house was finished, beautiful big house. There's pictures there we'll put up that I've taken basically from the internet. The people that live there now, their daughter, who's a beauty queen, and
What's
she's
the meaning of beauty queen? Like a model?
yeah, no, she's won like, the Miss Ireland bikini,
Oh yeah.
that kind of thing. She's written a book. She's grown up in the house. They've lived there now for 23 years. But I digress. We come that house. It was built for 1795, and it was built, as I say, by the Church of Ireland. There was an unfortunate incident that where the vicar and his wife, they had a guest there, and he was a Reverend Hamilton, and United Irishmen who had probably come from Letterkenny direction knew he was there and came in to assassinate him, and in the crossfire killed the wife of the vicar.
Oh.
Now, she's supposed to be the blue lady that haunts the place, but apparently it also has a demonic presence,
Mm-hmm.
and it has been haunted ever since the early 1800s and documented. There's been programs done about it, there's been stories written about it. This particular family moved in 23, they bought it in the early 90, I think 1990 or something like that. So what, yeah, early, maybe long,
1990, there'd be 31. 30.
31, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in the early 90s, they bought this house and the couple moved in with a young family, and they've grown up. And the girl in the family, she's written a book about it. But it's not just your average haunting. Obviously, they invested a lot of money and developed the house and brought it back to its former glory, etc. And that's not the kind of thing then you can go, oh, it's haunted, we'll have to move out.
Mm.
People don't have those kind of finances where they can do something like that.
But they don't know how to cleanse properly then.
I don't know the whole story. This is something I'm going to actually read her book. She's brought a book out, and basically the book was a diary that she kept for the last 22 years.
Okay.
And that
Mental
all, yeah,
hauntings and stuff.
apparently she's been burned, she's been bitten, she's been scraped,
Mm.
they've had things broken in the house. So they've actually catalogued an awful lot of what's gone on.
Wow.
Now, I mean, cleansing,
And
okay,
it's in the book, is it?
yes, I believe it's all in the book.
Okay.
So, I mean, I'm definitely, but that's again, it's like I would love very much, and I've said this before, I would love very much to know what the ley lines are like between sort of Letterkenny and, that part of the coast. Because you go along, then there's another story then that I heard, and this is in Derry. Now, this is quite near the city centre where there's streets that go up in a hill. I don't know the names of them. So it's a house up there. And this is back in the 70s. Now, I've heard it from somebody who's read this on, I'd heard it from someone else type of thing. It's all hearsay.
Hearsay, yeah.
And it was a woman in Buncrana whose sister was married out in Derry. And this is back in the 70s. And as you know, Donegal, the bus service in Donegal was practically non-existent. Nowadays, everybody's got a car or there's private coaches. There's some way of getting about. But back in the 70s, maybe 2 buses a day, that type of thing. So she's decided to stay the night with the sister and the husband and family. And they've put her in a spare room upstairs, and she's got into the spare room and she's there lying down, going to sleep about 5 minutes. And then this big bang, 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 bang. And she jumps up and shouts to the sister, "What under God's that?" And the sister comes up and she says, "Oh, it's the ones next door. They're working on something." She says, "Jesus Christ, at this time." She says, "We've already said it to them and they said they're not working on anything. But sure, what else could it be?"
Mm.
And she's like, "Right, okay." And so the sister went out and she's laid down. She's trying to get back to sleep. And the next thing she could hear something breathing beside her.
Um,
And she opened her eyes, and there's this man standing there in his overalls. And she's like, "Who are you?" And apparently he'd been killed in that room. Now he must have been. It was one of these old Victorian houses, that have been turned into, probably apartments or whatever. And he must have been there. This must be there a long time. I don't know the whole story, but apparently he'd been killed there and taken and buried as a stranger. No one ever prayed for him.
so it's
No
like a
one
kind
ever.
of
So he said that no one ever prayed to release his soul.
right. Well, I was thinking about this sort of thing recently when I went down to the graveyard again in Mount Jerome and just
Mm.
for a walk. I like it when because there's quite old graves there. I've subsequently found out that there's like my best friend's grandparents are there and people that all that kind of stuff. But I've no interest in going to kind of new graves. But there were quite a lot of unmarked graves, like and like kind of
Well, you see, that would have been quite common all over. I mean, not just Ireland, but in
yeah.
a lot of countries. People like, say, vagabonds or people that went looking for work and maybe
But yeah,
land
I
in
wonder
town
if
and
people are
something
homeless
happens to
or
them.
who they are.
Yeah, it's not like people carried identification on them in those days or a license or, personal ID. They were probably lucky to be walking along with the clothes in their back and
Yeah.
whatever. So that that's happened a lot around Ireland. It's happened, as I say, all over.
Mhm.
That's just something that was just the case. I mean, it's like I'm sure there's people buried in bogs all over
I
Ireland.
think in
And
Dublin it's rare these days because grave plots are so valuable. People they're so expensive in the
yeah,
area. So
but that's what I mean. People there would have been you would have still had to have had a plot in the olden days, and say some drifters going through town,
mm,
and something happens to them, something befalls them, or they have an accident or they have a heart attack or whatever reason they die. There's no ID. They don't know who to contact. They've no way of contacting people. You know what I mean? And people couldn't afford to bury somebody else. So they would have been buried in paupers' graveyards, or, as would have been the case in a lot of places, buried wherever they fell.
yeah. I just find this really interesting because there's the most elaborate, most beautiful statue graves, like Arthur Guinness, who was the founder of Guinness.
Hmm.
He's there, so he obviously has a big expensive crypt or something. And then you have these paupers' graves, as you said, that are might be marked out with stone or they're barely marked out at all. I'd say they're less than 100 years old. So I went down anyway to say hello, but the point I was making was I wonder if they're trapped because no one cares.
Well, do you know something? See, that's very possible because see, when I heard that story, it's not even the fact that the woman heard; it was what she said.
Mm,
No one ever prayed for me. No one ever prayed to release my soul, and I've never heard of that before.
mm.
It's something I suppose we took for granted. That's what happens when you
I've
pray for
heard it in
someone
the
to die.
context of people kind of helping people cross over to
Yeah,
the other side, but I've never heard it in a I'm here because
no one. Yeah, exactly. Nobody prayed for the release of my soul. But I mean, that means this woman was always obviously receptive to hearing and seeing spirit. It's not everybody that is receptive to that. So I mean, how many people don't know how to communicate? How many restless souls are there like that all over the place? I would imagine a lot.
I feel like I can turn off my ability to be perceptive of things,
Mhm.
but I am quite perceptive of
You
things.
mean you just choose to ignore it at times?
At times, I feel like I need to. Like up on the island as well. Like that place is so haunted that you have to ignore it unless you want to get scared. Like I'm personally scared, so I try not to be.
I'm a scaredy cat.
I'm a wimp.
Like, I mean, I am a scaredy cat, and especially if I'm in here on my own. I wouldn't be averse to sleeping with the light on. I scare the bejesus out of myself talking about things like this because I know it, but at the same time, I know I shouldn't be, and I try not to be.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
when you're nodding off to sleep and it's dark and you feel a whoosh,
Mhm.
but yeah, no, at least I
We're,
don't, I touch wood, I don't have anything like this.
we're
That our
back to
family in Manor Cunningham have been suffering.
Oh yeah. Back to the just I was thinking about Michael's story about we didn't really discussed the fact that that might have been some kind of more than just a ghost in her house. It was sort of
No, that's definitely
that's
some
the,
sort of dark entity.
it seemed
But
to be
I
attached to
did
the
hit
girl.
on it when I said, was she doing Ouija boards? That's the first thing I thought,
Yeah,
no.
I was saying that
And
it's like
apparently, yes, she was doing Ouija boards. So that I have said this a million times, don't do it, don't be involved with it. Even the most experienced people, you're really best staying away from it.
mm,
But I know you see a lot of these like Most Haunted, and they do it quite regularly for TV and things like that. But I'm quite sure they'll be the first to tell you that, that's hard work and it's tough going. I wouldn't, it's not something you do lightly, and it's certainly not something people should sit and do on their own without any experience, because if you're inviting something in, it's very rarely a spirit at rest that's coming in to entertain you. Like, I mean,
mm-hmm.
it's I say this all the time, you can be very, and you could end up being stuck with something that
Well,
attaches itself to you. And that's what
sounded
it
like
sounded like to me
yeah,
for her.
it sounded
Something
like
attached
that.
itself.
It sounded like that, and it sounded like she didn't really mind, that
I
she
know, but something that's just,
observing it.
that's youth and this sort of like, maybe not, I don't know, well, I actually don't understand it, like, and then not having seen or heard it firsthand,
Yeah.
we have to go like on his opinion. But
He seemed quite close to it though, and he said that it came into his house then the next time when she moved in with him. So
yeah,
that was it was a very, if it's true, and there's no reason to disbelieve him. If that's pretty heavy.
it is. But it's not far away from the house that we know that was exorcised.
Yes.
Is that the proper word? Is that the proper for an exorcism, to say that it's been exorcised?
Exercise, yeah, good point.
I
Cleared.
don't know. I don't know. Is that the correct grammar? I don't know.
We'll look
Somebody
it up.
might be there to correct me
Exorcism
on it. But
terminal.
it's not far from the same place. So I'm wondering, is there? It's very hard to get information on things going that far back, and that's what I mean. It's that you really have to root around to find people maybe in the locale that have written about it.
Yeah.
It's the same here. It's nearly always locals that write about things around here. There are no concise, you can't get a concise history book of Ireland. As I say, it's all mismatched all over the place. And
Mhm.
it's something I'd love to see. So I've been saying it for 25, 30 years. It's something I'd love to see somebody do. It's not
It's
something I
just too
don't think
much
somebody could do
history.
on their own.
It's maybe there's a reason.
Yeah, no, I'm far too lazy to write a book, especially a concise book,
No.
that
Me
has
too.
everything in it. As I could sit here like Barbara Cartlet and I know here, somebody else write it for me.
Yeah, no, it's not my expertise is not writing.
Yeah, no,
That said,
I
actually,
haven't.
though, don't hold that against me because I've written a few books, but they're not that kind of book. I wrote some kids' books.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. That's where it's been difficult trying to find out information on various battles that have taken place.
Yeah,
It tends to be more local. You have to go into local history in various places and through their local tourism. But even then, that's very limited. So it's just literally coming on the right sort of author, to find out. So I've been limited to find out what's happening, why this particular area would seems to be a bit of a hotspot. I'm not having very much
yeah.
success in finding out what's gone on there in the past.
To be fair, most of the stories we're hearing from people are from that area
Yeah.
of
And
Donegal.
that's not Ballymacool. We're not even talking about Ballymacool.
Just
It's
generally.
a different area.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's a different area. But yeah, so that's a couple of stories. But you were saying you had one too.
It's just something really tiny. When I was at my friend's house, our a mutual friend's house, at the weekend, I went for my shower and I could have sworn that I locked the door, and it was one of the locks that is a slide across lock. It's not,
Is it an old house?
yeah, really old, I think. Well, I don't know how old, but it's quite old, yes. And I had a discussion with my friend about it being haunted. I was like, "Oh, I don't feel like this house is haunted." It's something that I kind of do when I go to places when you feel like, "Oh, there's a nice energy." I'm sort of like, "Oh, I don't feel like this place is cursed." So I
And he's quite intuitive, our friend.
Oh yeah,
Did
he
he get a
he turned around to me and he was like, "Oh no, I think it is haunted," and I was like, "Okay, Grant," but I thought nothing of it otherwise. I had a great night's sleep every night I was there. And anyway, this one time I was having my shower, I locked the door as you would, slid the thing across, and had my shower. And then as I was leaving after my shower, it was fully open, like fully. And I didn't hear it or anything open. I didn't see it open, but I do remember locking it. And it's you sort of don't forget within the space of half an hour unless there's something
Not
wrong.
at your age. At my age, I could make that sort of mistake, but not
Yeah,
at your
okay.
age.
Yeah, and I wasn't under the influence of anything. And it's a physical act, sliding it across. I remember doing it, it wasn't, I didn't
Right.
imagine.
Well, do you know something? I'm going the next time. Next time I can get it. I think we are still on another extended. I'm not sure for another
No, we're
couple
not.
of
You're
days.
allowed. We're not. We're allowed
Are
out.
we?
Yeah, and you've got one vaccine. You need your
Ah,
second.
yes. Well, I've had one. But you don't know, I'm using it as an excuse. Are you sure we're not still in lockdown?
No, we're out. We're out of lockdown now, I
Yeah,
think.
I know. I've seen all the holiday offers starting to go on. I'm very, very tempted.
Yeah,
Very tempted. I can't.
I
But you
feel
know
like I
what? I'm
need my
going to.
vaccine. I feel like, and also because I went visiting there, I'm quarantining this week. Doing that kind of thing. I
I
don't want.
haven't gone to do the visiting yet. Though I haven't said that, I did go over to my cousin over the road today. But we'd both been vaccinated, so
You're
we
allowed
were,
now,
we
so
were okay.
you're allowed like meet 6 people or up to 15 people outdoors.
Yes,
It's
I know. Well, there's students here at the moment too.
Yeah, well, I heard there's a lot of. I did hear Donegal is the second worst county after Dublin in terms of. We're just too social.
That's it. Well, it's like, you can't come here. Go on.
Yeah, we'll just meet up outside,
See you
but
in the
we'll
back
put
door.
our
We won't
really.
mind. We won't mind. And then, oh, how did all that happen? It's all like that. Right. Well, that's us now for this Thursday. Next Thursday, I was speaking to Michael, and he's going away to the States for 3 months.
Oh yeah,
So he's going to come on one more time. He would like to go over an experience he had
cool. Got
before
more
he
like
goes.
he's just full of stories. That's great because I need
Yeah,
to.
and a wee bit more confidence as he's doing it. Like so, yeah. So we'll have him on next Thursday. I must get in touch with Regina. I haven't been speaking to her for a while. I'm sure she's bound to have a few stories by now. I was speaking to Brian,
Oh yeah,
and he's quite happy to come on sometime at the end of the month. But we'll get Michael first, seeing as he's going away, and then we'll get in touch with Brian and see what suits him.
yeah.
So yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in again. Please like and share. And thank you, Jamie, for sharing with your friends last week. We always get a nice wee spike when Jamie's friends tune in. And it was my their son's birthday yesterday, so belated birthday. Well, I did wish him
Happy
happy birthday,
birthday,
obviously.
Edward.
Yes. But yeah, so thanks everyone. Like and share and subscribe. As I keep telling all my friends, my age group, you don't have to watch the whole thing if you don't want to.
Just like, share, and
But
subscribe.
yeah, I know.
Very
But
happy
okay, so
today.
next Thursday we'll be back with more haunted hearsay and more ghosty stories. So everyone have a good weekend and we'll see you again. EY.
See ya.